Good morning, everyone. Today I am extremely happy to interact with personnel from a great organization to talk about India's integrity and unity in the context of 75th year of our independence. Indian independence struggle was based on the principles of non-violence. The leaders of independence struggle envisaged a democratic country aiming to achieve a socialistic structure for its people. Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel played a major role in integrating around 500 princely states and organizing states based on local languages and culture. Though India could achieve freedom without bloodshed, partition happened with a lot of bloodshed. Communal and religious strife took away the spirit of joy during independence celebration. Gandhiji was fasting, pained at the bloodshed. India had a deep scar on her bosom as the sun rose in independent India. 75 years ago, only through police action, some of the states like Hyderabad could be annexed to India. There was unrest in Kashmir. India was economically in ruins. Planned economic development and raising of scientific institutions was our first priority under the leadership of Jawaharlal Nehru after independence. In spite of the fact that 70% of the population were illiterate, unlike even some of the Western societies, India offered universal suffrage to its citizens. The provinces were given substantial powers. At the same time, central government was vested with sufficient powers to maintain integrity of the nation. Thus, Indian leaders deliberately plunged the nation into a gigantic struggle for democratic equality. Kindling the national spirit was an automatic outcome of non-violent struggle for independence. However, aiming for the welfare of all its citizens was a huge dream. The nation needed to be kept as one integral unit to keep up unity. A unified civil service was established by the efforts of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel to run the nation with a united administrative structure. India's GDP in 1700 was 24% of the world total, and by 1947 it had fallen to 4%. British systematically destroyed India's industries and exports. During the Mughal period, we had a great industrially well-organized country. By imposing high taxes, the British caused depleting of food and money stocks, leading to Great Bengal famine in 1770, which killed 1/3 of the people of Bengal. After the British won over the Mughals in 1764, in the Battle of Buxar, India was deindustrialized. It was not an easy matter to raise up to the aspirations of a totally economically devastated people. The people were also divided into various castes, religions, and the vote bank politics and power equations. As the framers of the constitution were very much aware of the divide and rule policy of the British, They laid great stress for the need of ensuring unity and integrity of the nation. With this view, India was declared as a secular state with single citizenship. The word integrity had been added to the constitution by the 42nd Constitutional Amendment. Article 51A(c) of the Constitution says that it shall be the duty of every citizen of India to uphold and protect the sovereignty, unity and integrity of India. The unity in our nation does not mean the kind of oneness that comes from racial and cultural similarity. It is unity in spite of great differences in language, religion, and culture. In other words, unity in diversity. The national flag, the national anthem, the national emblem, and national festivals are all designed to enhance the spirit of national unity. National unity in its true sense cannot be achieved when people within the country are living in a fractured socio-political life. The architect of Constitution, Dr. B.R. Ambedkar, believed in universal brotherhood and dreamt of freeing ourselves from the socio-political binaries, from notions of religion, caste, gender, regions, and language. These are all grave threats to national unity even today. That is after 75 years of independence. National integration is of utmost importance for a nation which is multiracial and multilingual. It unites people in case of national emergencies like external aggression, national calamities, or pandemics. Post-independent India, with its robust constitution, conducted democratic elections, elected governments at the center and the states, laid the foundation stones to rebuild the nation economically, educationally and socially. In the late 50s and 60s, great institutions of India were established. For example, DRDO was established in 1958. India decided to go to space when Indian National Committee for Space Research was set up in 1962. With the visionary Dr. Vikram Sarabhai at its helm, Tumba Equatorial Rocket Launching Station was set up in 1969. ISRO upheld the mission of bringing space to the service of common man. Indian Institute of Technology was conceived in 1951. The first IIT was set up at Kharagpur. What Nehru planned has grown, and currently India accounts for about 10% of all expenditure on research and development in Asia. However, India is said to have only 140 researchers per million population compared to 4,651 in the US. China invested about 4 times more than India in research and development. The papers generated in India has fewer sites than average. Right from the contribution of C.V. Raman to Shanti Swarup Bhatnagar, the father of Indian research laboratories, the influence of science and technology on nation building keeps its pace. Vishwesvaraya, Homi J. Bhabha, Satish Dhawan, APJ Abdul Kalam, scientists and technologists had great influence on national politics too, which helps in forging unity and integrity through scientific tempo and technological advancement. After the economic liberalization in the 1990s, the next unifying and progressive factor in India has been communication revolution in the current times. Digital India has its great vision. This coupled with Make in India has played a major role in unifying and integrating India further. The Right of Children to Free and Compulsory Education Act 2009, based on Article 21A of Constitution, that is the 86th Amendment Act 2002, was a great step towards unifying India. The act is not that easy to be translated into practice. We still see children toiling in factories, agricultural fields, or quarrying fields. I have myself seen many children while traveling throughout the length and breadth of India on duty, working hard to earn a livelihood. They are unable to go to school. Nai Talim of Gandhiji is in practice in many nations other than India, but we do not see that in practice. The children should be able to get vocational training. At the same time, they must be able to get formal education also. Why can't we allow our children to work in the field along with their parents in the fasal cutting season and at the same time go to school on other days? We are now able to provide children with free food in the school. I have seen once I was on election duty in Bihar. That was in 2019. When I went to the school, that was I think around 12 noon, I couldn't find many children. The headmaster cum teacher was there and 5 or 6 students only were there. And on the veranda of the school, I have seen the ladies were preparing food for noon. By 1 o'clock, I found around 100 children in the school. That is to get the midday meal. I was asking the teacher, why can't you inspire the children to come and study at least for 1 or 2 hours before and after the meals? If as a teacher you are unable to inspire your children to come to school not only to get the midday meal but to learn something too, it will be really good. Then the teacher was telling they are more interested in going and working in the field along with the parents. I said it's okay. Every day let them go to the field and help the parents at the same time. Why don't you inspire them to come to the school also for at least 1 or 2 hours a day? It's much better than coming only to get the midday meal. The same story I have seen in interior villages of UP also. Right from the very beginning, independent India had clarity of vision as far as ethnicity, cultural diversity and linguistic diversity are concerned. Federalism coupled with plurality not only helped to take care of diversity but also made its citizens to be proud of its diversity. As a child, when I watched national volleyball tournament at my hometown, I felt extremely proud to watch the very differently looking Northeast teams playing. My cousin supported UP team as she stayed in Lucknow along with her father, who was an army officer, and she knew Hindi. That was my first exposure to a national unifying, integrating event. Even today, when I visit any national institute or attend any national event, I see a mini India, which even today makes me feel a very proud Indian. India's federal democratic structure has wherewithal to withstand better stresses arising out of diverse and competing demands bordering secession. Though through empowerment of minorities, India achieved internal unity much better than those countries striving to achieve the same through military might. Look at Sri Lanka, which did not opt for federalism. They could not even include one ethnic group into its fold, and it led to conflict for years together, in which thousands of lives were lost. Rights of linguistic minorities in each state is a beautiful example developed by India. Scholarship for religious minorities, reservation for economically and socially backward communities, etc. are examples for how our nation is striving to achieve inclusivity of everyone. Constructing political and economic institutions with inclusivity is an Indian saga. Gender equity is another aspect for inclusivity. Even Indian armed forces are made to honor gender equity in our country. Constitutional rights and special laws are made to ensure gender equity. It is the duty of every responsible citizen to strive for gender equality. Society cannot fly with one chopped wing. From 2014 onwards, we started to celebrate National Unity Day. This is to mark the birth anniversary of Sardar Vallabhbhai Patel, who played a major role in political integration of India. On this day, citizens of India take a pledge of unity, integrity, security, and the spirit of unification. At this juncture, the importance of security cannot be underestimated. Each and every citizen is a security guard to the nation. Without the willing cooperation of the public, the internal security of the nation cannot be kept intact. This is especially so in the case of our vital installation and the people working in organizations such as ISRO. Sense of responsibility in handling with sensitive data and information are extremely important. Security sensitization of every personnel in such organization cannot be underestimated. National spirit and sanity of mind are basic qualifications for a person working in an organization such ISRO. So it is very apt that your esteemed organization has arranged such a function. I congratulate you for organizing this function and participating in it enthusiastically. Every achievement of ISRO is a matter of great pride for any Indian citizen. Scientific discoveries are in fact the only rockets which can launch India to a unifying and integrating progressive plane. As a police officer having 33 years of experience, I can vouch that the citizens' cooperation is the crux of unity and integrity of our nation. I have been the nodal officer for the much accoladed community policing project of Kerala, namely the Janamaitri Suraksha project. As the nodal officer of this project, I have been able to interact with people from every sections of the society. People from every sections of the society had the spirit of unification only because they could come to a common platform and interact with the police who look after the security. As members of the Janamaitri Security Council, in every police station limit, people from every sections of the society used to interact. While the great deluge took place in 2018, just because we all had common platforms, we all had interacted with each other previously, what happened is that when we found that there was a lot of difficulty in reaching out to the people who were isolated due to floods, just to rescue these people, we thought that the fishermen's help may be sought. They do have the equipments, they know how to reach out using their boats. So it was just an idea, and the fishermen from Trivandrum and Kollam were transported to interior areas of Pathanamthitta, Kottayam, all these districts. They were extremely willing to sacrifice, and some of them even lost their only investment, that is that boat or canoe, the net, everything. Even then, they were extremely happy to help out. We had to carry them on lorries, their boats and all, and they happily came with us, and it made a new history for Kerala. That is, in the times of need, we were unified. Every citizen was ready to help each other. So this platform, the Janamaitri Suraksha project, actually helped in making a forum of interaction, that pre-interaction, I trust, that helped in carrying out that mission during deluge in a finer manner. So this is the type of interaction which is needed. In the times of need, any citizen has to work in a unified fashion. All the citizens could come to a platform and help each other. Of course, nowadays we are dealing with climatic change. These are so many reasons, and the activities that are taking place in the Indian Ocean, in the Arabian Sea, in the Bay of Bengal. we are unable to control of all these phenomena as a nation. India cannot control what is happening in these seas. At the same time, India need to organize itself and warn its people in a much better, scientifically better manner, so that we do have remote sensing data and algorithm based methods to predict landslides, landslips and rains in a much better fashion. That's what my experience has taught me. We have seen different disasters in 2018, 2019, 2020, and recently on 16th of October also we have seen landslides in Kottayam and Idukki districts. And what happened? I can be frank with you, there was no accurate prediction regarding what is going to happen. So the need of the hour is that we must be able to predict landslides after proper study of the soil. The hydrologist has to be engaged, the climate expert has to be engaged, the soil expert has to be engaged, the environmentalist has to be engaged. So every scientist, they should all interact with each other, and interdisciplinary research is needed so that accurate prediction is possible whenever such events are happening. Then the people will be able to understand, yes, we are united and integrated. Our scientific community, our administrators are able to tell us what is needed in the times of need. And our scientific community must be able to extend environmental literacy to the people of India, our administrators, all the common citizens, so that our environment is not predated again, so that whatever is left will be left, so that the earth is there for the future generations to live. If that doesn't happen, with my experience as a leader of Kerala Fire and Rescue Services, the future is going to be bleak. My teams were there continuously working for many days to recover the bodies, first to recover people, reach out to the spot itself was great difficulty. If every year during the monsoon season or otherwise we have to deal with such issues, and we are unable to deal with such issues in a scientific fashion with proper consultation with every section of the society, the real integrity, the real unity, the real trust of the people cannot happen. So this is the responsibility of every group in India. The administrators, the scientists, the activists, the common citizens, everybody has to come to a common platform so that any natural calamity, any man-made calamity, any security threat from external areas or even from internal strife, we are able to cope with, we are able to deal with appropriately. So that is the actual spirit of unity and integrity of India as a nation. Let us strive for that. Let us excel in the field where we are working so that we are a hope for the common citizens. And the common citizens are well informed so that they are able to deal with the situation in a much informed fashion whenever the need arises. From data security in the clouds to climate prediction, we depend upon our scientific community. In the current era, when every citizen is reaching through social media on any event anywhere in the world as they wish, science and technology only helps us to become effectively watchful. Every community forming social media groups and making comments on somebody else's personal celebrations or national tragedies, even like Mahatma Gandhi's assassination, are not in the national unifying spirit. Propriety and discretion in use of social media is something to be learned by everyone. Use of this social media in a very discreet manner has to be learned from the childhood, and netizens who are mature also should be knowing about this. During the pandemic COVID, our children have been exposed to internet for most of the time. This is a great challenge. Discreet use of internet is extremely important when it comes to children and teenagers. We must be able to guide them. The discreet use has to be taught, and this also is extremely important as our children falling to the the problems like drug or addiction to internet. The future is going to be bleak. So these areas are extremely important. Post-pandemic era, how to mold our children for the future is also extremely important. Let me also tell, just like digital literacy, legal literacy is also important. Every child has a legal right which has to be protected by the grown-ups. Every woman has a legal right which has to be protected by the legal system and everyone in the society, so that anybody in the society gets his or her legal rights. That is extremely important for a free nation where free spirit has to be nurtured. Inculcating scientific temper in every Indian citizen is the only way out to take us away from any parochial approaches and views. Let scientific temper lead us. Let us have a united, integrated India. Long live the spirit of unity, integrity, and secularism in India. I wish every personnel in the ISRO every success, and let us all live with free spirit in a free, united, integrated India. Thank you, one and all.